Neatness, order, and regularity. Cultivate order and taste. The cultivation of order and taste is an important part of the education of children. As the guardian and teacher of your children, you are in duty bound to do every little thing in the home with nicety and in order. Teach your children the invaluable lesson of keeping their clothing tidy. Keep your own clothing clean and sweet and respectable. You are under obligation to God always to be patterns of propriety in your home. Remember that in heaven there is no disorder, and that your home should be a heaven here below. Remember that in doing faithfully from day to day the little things to be done in the home, you are a laborer together with God, perfecting a Christian character. Bear in mind, parents, that you are working for the salvation of your children. If your habits are correct, if you reveal neatness and order, virtue and righteousness, sanctification of soul, body, and spirit, you respond to the words of the Redeemer, ye are the light of the world. Train in habits of neatness. Every family is required to be trained in habits of neatness, cleanliness, and thoroughness. We who profess to believe the truth must make manifest to the world that the principles of truth and righteousness do not make people coarse, rough, untidy, and disorderly. Love for God will be expressed in the family by love for our children. Genuine love will not let them drift into slackness and untidiness, because this is the easiest way. But from the pure examples set before them by the parents, by the loving but inflexible firmness in cultivating industrious habits, they will educate their children after the same order. Teach children to care for clothing. Begin early to teach the little ones to take care of their clothing. Let them have a place to lay their things away and be taught to fold every article neatly and put it in its place. If you cannot afford even a cheap bureau, use a dry goods box, fitting it with shelves and covering it with some bright, pretty figured cloth. This work of teaching neatness and order will take a little time each day, but it will pay in the future of your children, and in the end will save you much time and care. To keep our own room tidy. If the children have a room which they know is their own, and if they are taught how to keep it tidy and make it pleasant, they will have a sense of ownership. They will feel that they have within the home a home of their own, and will have a satisfaction in keeping it neat and nice. The mother will necessarily have to inspect their work and make suggestions and give instruction. This is the mother's work. To have regular hours for sleep. How prevalent is the habit of turning day into night and night into day. Many youth sleep soundly in the morning when they should be up with the early singing birds and be stirring when all nature is awake. Some youth are much opposed to order and discipline. They do not respect the rules of the home by rising at a regular hour. They lie in bed some hours after daylight when everyone should be astir. They burn the midnight oil, depending upon artificial light to supply the place of the light that nature has provided at seasonable hours. In so doing, they not only waste precious opportunities, but cause additional expense. But in almost every case, the plea is made, I cannot get through my work. I have something to do. I cannot retire early. The precious habits of order are broken, and the moments thus idled away in the early morning set things out of course for the whole day. Our God is a God of order, and He desires that His children should will to bring themselves into order and under His discipline. Would it not be better, therefore, to break up this habit of turning night into day and the fresh hours of the morning into night? If the youth would form habits of regularity and order, they would improve in health, in spirits, in memory, and in disposition. It is the duty of all to observe strict rules in their habits of life. This is for your own good, dear youth, both physically and morally. When you rise in the morning, take into consideration as far as possible the work you must accomplish during the day. If necessary, have a small book in which to jot down the things that need to be done, and set yourself a time in which to do your work. Section 7. Lessons in Practical Virtues. Chapter 20. Helpfulness. Teach the children to be helpful. Chapter 19. Purity. Give instruction in the principles of purity. Christian mothers be entreated by a mother to realize the responsibility resting upon you. Teach your children from the cradle to practice self-denial and self-control. Bring them up to have sound constitutions and good morals. Impress upon their tender minds the truth that God does not design that we shall live for present gratification merely, but for our ultimate good. These lessons will be as seed sown in fertile soil, and they will bear fruit that will make your hearts glad. To shield their children from contaminating influences, parents should instruct them in the principles of purity. Those children who in the home form habits of obedience and self-control will have little difficulty in their school life and will escape many of the temptations that beset the youth. Parents should train their children to be true to God under all circumstances and in all places. They should surround them with influences that tend to strengthen character. With such a training, children, when sent away to school, will not be a cause of disturbance or anxiety. They will be a support to their teachers and an example and encouragement to their fellow pupils. Exercise unceasing watchfulness. Parents and guardians must themselves maintain purity of heart and life if they would have their children pure. They must give the needed instruction, and in addition to this, they must exercise unceasing watchfulness. Every day, new thoughts are awakened in the minds of the young, new impressions made upon their hearts. The associations they form, the books they read, the habits they cherish, all must be guarded. Keep the home pure and attractive. The home must be kept pure and clean. Unclean, neglected corners in the house will tend to make impure, neglected corners in the soul. Mothers, you are the educators of your children, and you can do a great deal if you begin early to inculcate pure thoughts by fitting up their rooms in a cleanly, tasteful, attractive manner. Guard the associations. If parents desire their children to be pure, they must surround them with pure associations such as God can approve. With what care parents should guard their children from careless, loose, demoralizing habits. Fathers and mothers, do you realize the importance of the responsibility resting on you? Do you allow your children to associate with other children without being present to know what kind of education they are receiving? Do not allow them to be alone with other children. Give them your special care. Every evening, know where they are and what they are doing. Are they pure in all their habits? Have you instructed them in the principles of moral purity? If you have neglected to teach them line upon line, precept upon precept, here a little and there a little, let not another day pass without confessing to them your neglect to do this. Tell them that you mean now to do your God-appointed work. Ask them to take hold with you in the reform. Neighbors may permit their children to come to your house to spend the evening and the night with your children. Here's a trial and a choice for you: to run the risk of offending your neighbors by sending their children to their own home, or gratify them and let them lodge with your children and thus expose them to be instructed in that knowledge which would be a lifelong curse to them. To save my children from becoming corrupted, I have not allowed them to sleep in the same bed or in the same room with other boys, and have, as occasion has required when traveling, made a scanty bed upon the floor for them, rather than have them lodge with others. I have tried to keep them from associating with rough, rude boys, and have presented inducements before them to make their employment at home cheerful and happy. By keeping their minds and hands occupied, they have had but little time or disposition to play in the street with other boys and obtain a street education. Erect barriers against sensuality. Those who have charge of God's property and the souls and bodies of the children formed in His image should erect barriers against the sensual indulgence of the age, which is ruining the physical and moral health of thousands. If many of the crimes of this time were traced to their true cause, it would be seen that they are chargeable to the ignorance of fathers and mothers who are indifferent on this subject. Health and life itself are being sacrificed to this lamentable ignorance. Parents, if you fail to give your children the education which God has made it your duty to give them, you must answer to Him for the results. These results will not be confined merely to your children. As the one thistle permitted to grow in the field produces a harvest of its kind, so the sins resulting from your neglect will work to ruin all who come within the sphere of their influence. Fill the mind with images of purity. The Christian life is one of constant self-denial and self-control. These are the lessons to be taught the children from their infancy. Teach them that they must practice temperance, purity in thought and heart and act, that they belong to God because they have been bought with a price, even the precious blood of His dear Son. If in their tender years the minds of children are filled with pleasant images of truth, of purity and goodness, a taste will be formed for what is pure and elevated, and their imagination will not become easily corrupted or defiled. While if the opposite course is pursued, if the minds of the parents are continually dwelling upon low scenes, if their conversation lingers over objectionable features of character, if they form a habit of speaking complainingly of the course others have pursued, the little ones will take lessons from the words and expressions of contempt and will follow the pernicious example. The evil impress, like the taint of the leprosy, will cleave to them in after life. The seed sown in infancy by the careful, God-fearing mother will become trees of righteousness which will blossom and bear fruit. And the lessons given by a God-fearing father by precept and example will, as in the case of Joseph, yield an abundant harvest by and by. Chapter 21, Industry, a safeguard for the young. One of the surest safeguards of the young is useful occupation. Children who are trained to... Section 7, Lessons in Practical Virtues. Chapter 20, Helpfulness. Teach the children to be helpful. In the home school, the children should be taught how to perform the practical duties of everyday life. While they are still young, the mother should give them some simple task to do each day. It will take longer for her to teach them how than it would to do it herself, but let her remember that she is to lay for their character building the foundation of helpfulness. Let her remember that the home is a school in which she is the head teacher. It is hers to teach her children how to perform the duties of the household quickly and skillfully. As early in life as possible, they should be trained to share the burdens of the home. From childhood, boys and girls should be taught to bear heavier and still heavier burdens, intelligently helping in the work of the family firm. Overlook childish mistakes. Thousands in their own homes are left almost uneducated. It is so much trouble, says the mother. I would rather do these things myself. It is such a trouble. You bother me. Does not mother remember that she herself had to learn in jots and tittles before she could be helpful? It is a wrong to children to refuse to teach them little by little. Keep these children with you. Let them ask questions and in patience answer them. Give your little children something to do and let them have the happiness of supposing they help you. There must be no repulsing of your children when trying to do proper things. If they make mistakes, if accidents happen and things break, do not blame them. Their whole future life depends upon the education you give them in their childhood years. Teach them that all their faculties of body and mind were given to them to use, and that all are the Lord's, pledged to His service. To some of these children, the Lord gives an early intimation of His will. Parents and teachers begin early to teach the children to cultivate their God-given faculties. Let children share home burdens. Make the life of your children pleasant, and at the same time teach them to be obedient and helpful, bearing small burdens as you bear larger ones. Educate them to habits of industry, so that the enemy will not make a workshop of their minds. Give your children something to think of, something to do, that they may be fitted for usefulness in this life and in the future life. From their earliest years, they should be trained to carry their share of the home burdens. They should be taught that obligations are mutual. They should also be taught to work quickly and neatly. This education will be of the greatest value to them in after years. Each member of the family should understand just the part he is expected to act in union with the others. All, from the child 6 years old and upward, should understand that it is required of them to bear their share of life's burdens. A source of experience and pleasure, how important that fathers and mothers should give their children from their very babyhood the right instruction. They are to teach them to obey the command, honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. And the children, as they grow in years, are to appreciate the care that their parents have given them. They are to find their greatest pleasure in helping father and mother. A charm may surround the humblest employment. If children were taught to regard the humble round of everyday duties as the course marked out for them by the Lord, as a school in which they were to be trained to render faithful and efficient service, how much more pleasant and honorable would their work appear. To perform every duty as unto the Lord throws a charm around the humblest employment and links the workers on earth with the holy beings who do God's will in heaven. And in our appointed place we should discharge our duties with as much faithfulness as do the angels in their higher sphere. Chapter 22, Diligence and Perseverance, Satisfaction in Tasks Completed. Chapter 21, Industry, a Safeguard for the Young. One of the surest safeguards of the young is useful occupation. Children who are trained to industrious habits so that all their hours are usefully and pleasantly employed have no inclination to repine at their lot and no time for idle daydreaming. They are in little danger of forming vicious habits or associations. There is untold value in industry. Let the children be taught to do something useful. More than human wisdom is needed that parents may understand how best to educate their children for a useful, happy life here and for higher service and greater joy hereafter. Assign tasks appropriate to age and ability. From infancy, children should be trained to do those things which are appropriate for their age and ability. Parents should now encourage their children to become more independent. Serious troubles are soon to be seen upon the earth, and children should be trained in such a way as to be able to meet them. Teach your children to be useful, to bear burdens according to their years, then the habit of laboring will become second nature to them, and useful work will never seem like drudgery. The fruitage of idleness. Parents cannot commit a greater sin than to neglect their God-given responsibilities in leaving their children with nothing to do. For these children will soon learn to love idleness and grow up to be shiftless, useless men and women. When they become old enough to earn their living and are taken into employment, they will work in a lazy, droning way and will think they will be paid just the same if they idle away their time as if they did faithful work. There is every difference between this class of worker and the one who realizes that he must be a faithful steward. In whatever line of work they engage, the youth should be diligent in business, fervent in spirit, serving the Lord. For he that is unfaithful in that which is least is unfaithful also in much. If children have proper home training, they will not be found upon the streets receiving the haphazard education that so many receive. Parents who love their children in a sensible way will not permit them to grow up with lazy habits and ignorant of how to do home duties. Ignorance is not acceptable to God and is unfavorable for the doing of His work. The wise use of time. Where there is an abundance of idleness, Satan works with his temptations to spoil life and character. If youth are not trained to useful labor, whether they be rich or poor, they are in peril, for Satan will find employment for them after his own order. The youth who are not barricaded with principle do not regard time as a precious treasure, a trust from God, for which every human being must give an account. Children should be educated to make the very best use of their time, to be helpful to father and mother, to be self-reliant. They should not be allowed to consider themselves above doing any kind of labor that is necessary. The value of time is beyond computation. Time squandered can never be recovered. The improvement of wasted moments is a treasure. Overcome every indolent habit. In His Word, God has marked out a plan for the education of children, and this plan parents are to follow. They are to teach their children to overcome every indolent habit. Each child should be taught that he has a work to do in the world. Laziness and indolence are not the fruit borne upon the Christian tree. Indolence is a great curse. God has blessed human beings with nerves, organs, and muscles, and they are not to be allowed to deteriorate because of inaction, but are to be strengthened and kept in health by exercise. To have nothing to do is a great misfortune, for idleness ever has been and ever will be a curse to the human family. Children, never prove unfaithful stewards in the home. Never shirk your duty. Good hard work makes firm sinews and muscles. In promoting the prosperity of the home, you will bring the richest blessing to yourselves. Why work before play? My mother taught me to work. I used to ask my mother, why must I always do so much work before I play? It is to educate and train your mind for useful labor, and another thing, to keep you out of mischief. And when you get older, you will thank me for it. When one of my little girls, a granddaughter, said to me, why must I knit? Grandmothers knit, I replied. Will you tell me how grandmothers learned to knit? Why, they began when they were little girls. Value of a daily program. As far as possible, it is well to consider what is to be accomplished through the day. Make a memorandum of the different duties that await your attention and set apart a certain time for the doing of each duty. Let everything be done with thoroughness, neatness, and dispatch. If it falls to your lot to do the chamber work, then see that the rooms are well aired and that the bed clothing is exposed to the sunlight. Give yourself a number of minutes to do the work, and do not stop to read papers and books that take your eye, but say to yourself, no, I have just so many minutes in which to do my work, and I must accomplish my task in the given time. Let those who are naturally slow of movement seek to become active, quick, energetic, remembering the words of the apostle, not slothful in business, fervent in spirit, serving the Lord. If it falls to your lot to prepare the meals, make careful calculations and give yourself all the time necessary to prepare the food and set it on the table in good order and on exact time. To have the meal ready 5 minutes earlier than the time you have set is more commendable than to have it 5 minutes later. But if you are under the control of slow, dilatory movements, if your habits are of a lazy order, you will make a long job out of a short one, and it is the duty of those who are slow to reform and to become more expeditious. If they will, they can overcome their fussy, lingering habits. In washing dishes, they may be careful and at the same time do quick work. Exercise the will to this end, and the hands will move with dispatch. Blend the physical with the mental. When children were sent into my family to board, and they would say, my mother does not want me to do my washing, I would say, well, shall we do it for you and charge you $50 more for your board? Oh no, mother doesn't want to pay any more for me. Well then, I would say, you may get up in the morning and do it for yourself. God never designed that you should be waited upon by us. Instead of your mother getting up and getting breakfast in the morning while you lie in bed, you should be the one to say, Mother, don't you get up in the morning. We will take hold of these burdens and perform these duties. You should let those whose hairs are growing gray take their rest in the morning. Why is this not so? Where is the trouble? It is with the parents who let their children come up without bearing any burdens in the family. When these children go out to school, they say, Ma says she doesn't want me to work. Such mothers are foolish. They spoil their children and then send them to the school to spoil it. Work is the very best discipline they can have. It is no harder for them than for their mothers. Blend the physical labor with the mental, and the powers of the mind will develop far better. Devise ways. Parents should devise ways and means for keeping their children usefully busy. Let the children be given little pieces of land to cultivate, that they may have something to give as a free will offering. Allow them to help you in every way they can, and show them that you appreciate their help. Let them feel that they are part of the family firm. Teach them to use their minds as much as possible, so to plan their work that they may do it quickly and thoroughly. Teach them to be prompt and energetic in their work, to economize time so that no minutes may be lost in their allotted hours of work. Labor is noble. Let us teach the little ones to help us while their hands are small and their strength is slight. Let us impress upon their minds the fact that labor is noble, that it was ordained to man of heaven, that it was enjoined upon Adam and Eden as an essential to the healthy development of mind and body. Let us teach them that innocent pleasure is never half so satisfying as when it follows active industry. Chapter 23, Self-Denial, Unselfishness, and Thoughtfulness. Lessons that are needed in every home. In every home. Chapter 22, Diligence and Perseverance. Satisfaction in tasks completed. Children frequently begin a piece of work with enthusiasm, but becoming perplexed or wearied with it, they wish to change and take hold of something new. Thus they may take hold of several things, meet with a little discouragement, and give them up, until they pass from one thing to another, perfecting nothing. Parents should not allow the love of change to control their children. They should not be so much engaged with other things that they will have no time to patiently discipline the developing minds. A few words of encouragement or a little help at the right time may carry them over their trouble and discouragement, and the satisfaction they will derive from seeing the task completed that they undertook will stimulate them to greater exertion. Many children, for want of words of encouragement and a little assistance in their efforts, become disheartened and change from one thing to another. And they carry this sad defect with them in mature life. They fail to make success of anything they engage in, for they have not been taught to persevere under discouraging circumstances. Thus, the entire lifetime of many proves a failure because they did not have correct discipline when young. The education received in childhood and youth affects their entire business career and mature life, and their religious experience bears a corresponding stamp. Habits of indolence are carried into later life. Children who have been petted and waited upon always expect it, and if their expectations are not met, they are disappointed and discouraged. This same disposition will be seen through their whole lives. They will be helpless, leaning upon others for aid, expecting others to favor them and yield to them. And if they are opposed, even after they have grown to manhood and womanhood, they think themselves abused, and thus they worry their way through the world, hardly able to bear their own weight, often murmuring and fretting because everything does not suit them. Develop habits of thoroughness and dispatch. From the mother, the children are to learn habits of neatness, thoroughness, and dispatch. To allow a child to take an hour or two in doing a piece of work that could easily be done in half an hour is to allow it to form dilatory habits. Habits of industry and thoroughness will be an untold blessing to the youth in the larger school of life upon which they must enter as they grow older. Counsel, especially for girls. Another defect that has caused me much uneasiness and trouble is the habit some girls have of letting their tongues run, wasting precious time and talking of worthless things. While girls give their attention to talk, their work drags behind. These matters have been looked upon as little things unworthy of notice. Many are deceived as to what constitutes a little thing. Little things have an important relation to the great whole. God does not regard the infinitely little things that have to do with the welfare of the human family. Importance of little things. Never underrate the importance of little things. Little things supply the actual discipline of life. It is by them that the soul is trained that it may grow into the likeness of Christ or bear the likeness of evil. God help us to cultivate habits of thought, word, look, and action that will testify to all about us that we have been with Jesus and learned of him. Make mistakes a stepping stone. Let the child and the youth be taught that every mistake, every fault, every difficulty conquered becomes a stepping stone to better and higher things. It is through such experiences that all who have ever made life worth the living have achieved success. Chapter 24, Economy and Thrift. Chapter 23, Self-Denial, Unselfishness, and Thoughtfulness. Lessons that are needed in every home. In every home, there should be taught lessons of self-denial. Fathers and mothers, teach your children to economize. Encourage them to save their pennies for missionary work. Christ is our example. For our sake he became poor, that we through his poverty might be made rich. He taught that all should come together in love and unity, to work as he worked, to sacrifice as he sacrificed, to love as the children of God. Learn the lesson of self-denial and teach it to your children. All that can be saved by self-denial is needed now in the work to be done. The suffering must be relieved, the naked clothed, the hungry fed. The truth for this time must be told to those who know it not. Sacrifice should become habitual. By precept and example, teach self-denial, economy, large-heartedness, and self-reliance. Everyone who has a true character will be qualified to cope with difficulties and will be prompt in following a "Thus saith the Lord." Men are not prepared to understand their obligation to God until they have learned in Christ's school to wear his yoke of restraint and obedience. Sacrifice is the very beginning of our work in advancing the truth and in establishing institutions. It is an essential part of education. Sacrifice must become habitual in all our character building in this life, if we would have a building not made with hands, eternal in the heavens. A self-denial box. Children are to be educated to deny themselves. At one time when I was speaking in Nashville, the Lord gave me light on this matter. It flashed upon me with great force that in every home there should be a self-denial box, and that into this box the children should be taught to put their pennies they would otherwise spend for candy and other unnecessary things. You will find that as the children place their pennies in these boxes, they will gain a great blessing. Every member of the family, from the oldest to the youngest, should practice self-denial. Children should not be the center of attraction. Children of 2 to 4 years of age should not be encouraged to think that they must have everything that they ask for. Parents should teach them lessons of self-denial and never treat them in such a way as to make them think they are the center and that everything revolves about them. Many children have inherited selfishness from their parents, but parents should seek to uproot every fiber of this evil tendency from their natures. Christ gave many reproofs to those who were covetous and selfish. Parents should seek on the first exhibition of selfish traits of character, whether in their presence or when in association with other children, to restrain and uproot these traits from the character of their children. Some parents give much time and attention to amusing their children, but children should be trained to amuse themselves, to exercise their own ingenuity and skill. Thus they will learn to be content with very simple pleasures. They should be taught to bear bravely their little disappointments and trials. Instead of calling attention to every trifling pain or hurt, divert their minds, teach them to pass lightly over little annoyances or discomforts. The grace of self-forgetfulness. One of the characteristics that should be especially cherished and cultivated in every child is that self-forgetfulness which imparts to the life such an unconscious grace. Of all the excellences of character, this is one of the most beautiful, and for every true life work, it is one of the qualifications most essential. Study how to teach the children to be thoughtful of others. The youth should be early accustomed to submission, self-denial, and regard for others' happiness. They should be taught to subdue the hasty temper, to withhold the passionate word, to manifest unvarying kindness, courtesy, and self-control. How carefully should parents manage their children in order to counteract every inclination to selfishness. They should constantly suggest ways by which their children may become thoughtful for others and learn to do things for their mothers and fathers who are doing everything for them. Chapter 24, Economy and Thrift. Eliminate extravagant habits. Teach your children that God has a claim upon all they possess and that nothing can ever cancel this claim. All they have is theirs only in trust to prove whether they will be obedient. Money is a needed treasure. Let it not be lavished upon those who do not need it. Someone needs your willing gifts. If you have extravagant habits, cut them away from the life as soon as possible. Unless you do this, you will be bankrupt for eternity. And habits of economy, industry, and sobriety are, even in this world, a better portion for you and your children than a rich dowry. Instruct the children in economy. The light given me now by the Lord is that we are to be careful not to spend our precious time and money unwisely. Many things may suit our fancy, but we are to guard against the expenditure of money for that which is not bread. We shall need much means to advance the work decidedly in our cities. Everyone is to have a part to act in the Lord's work. Parents are to instruct their children in lessons of economy, in order that the younger members of the flock may learn to share the responsibilities of supporting the cause of God at this time. Love not expressed by extravagance. Practice economy in your homes. By many, idols are cherished and worshipped. Put away your idols. Give up your selfish pleasure. Do not, I beg of you, absorb means in embellishing your houses, for it is God's money, and it will be required of you again. Parents, for Christ's sake, do not use the Lord's money to please the fancies of your children. Do not teach them to seek after style and ostentation in order to obtain an influence in the world. Do not educate your children to think that your love for them must be expressed by indulging their pride, their extravagance, their love of display. There is no time now to invent ways of using money. Your inventive faculties are to be put to the stretch to see how you can economize. Christ's lesson in economy. There's a lesson for us in the feeding of the 5,000, a lesson that has a special application to those times when we are placed in trying circumstances and are compelled to practice close economy. Having worked the miracle and satisfied the hunger of the multitude, Christ was careful that the food that remained should not be wasted. He said to the disciples, "Gather up the fragments that remain, that nothing be lost." Though he had all the resources of heaven at his command, he would not suffer even a morsel of bread to be wasted. Discard nothing useful. Nothing that can be utilized should be thrown away. This will require wisdom and forethought and constant care. It has been presented to me that the inability to save in little things is one reason why so many families suffer for lack of the necessities of life. They never learn to economize. There is much work to be done for the Master, and men who might today be occupying high positions in connection with the Word of God have failed because they never learned to economize. They did not limit their wants to their incomes when they entered the work, and their spendthrift habits proved the ruin of their usefulness in the cause. How to teach the right use of money. Let every youth and every child be taught not merely to solve imaginary problems, but to keep an accurate account of his own income and outgoes. Let him learn the right use of money by using it. Whether supplied by their parents or by their own earnings, let boys and girls learn to select and purchase their own clothing, their books, and other necessities, and by keeping an account of their expenses, they will learn, as they could learn in no other way, the value and the use of money. The value of keeping accounts. When very young, children should be educated to read, to write, to understand figures, to keep their own accounts. They may go forward, advancing step by step in this knowledge. Let children be taught to keep an account. This will enable them to be accurate. The spendthrift boy will be the spendthrift man. The vain, selfish, self-caring girl will be the same kind of woman. We are to remember there are other youth for whom we are accountable. If we train our children to correct habits, through them we shall be able to influence others. Section 7, Developing Christian Qualities. Chapter 26. Chapter 25, Simplicity. Educate in natural simplicity. The little ones should be educated in childlike simplicity. They should be trained to be content with the small, helpful duties and the pleasures and experiences natural to their years. Childhood answers to the blade in the parable, and the blade has a beauty peculiarly its own. Children should not be forced into a precocious maturity, but as long as possible should retain the freshness and grace of their early years. The more quiet and simple the life of the child, the more free from artificial excitement, and the more in harmony with nature, the more favorable it is to physical and mental vigor and to spiritual strength. Parents should, by their example, encourage the formation of habits of simplicity and draw their children away from an artificial to a natural life. Unaffected children are most attractive. Those children are most attractive who are natural and unaffected. It is not wise to give children special notice. Vanity should not be encouraged by praising their looks, their words, or their actions, nor should they be dressed in an expensive and showy manner. This encourages pride in them and awakes envy in the hearts of their companions. Teach the children that the true adorning is not outward. Whose adorning let it not be that outward adorning of plaiting the hair and of wearing of gold or of putting on of apparel, but let it be the hidden man of the heart in that which is not corruptible, even the ornament of a meek and quiet spirit, which is in the sight of God of great price. 1 Peter 3:3 and 4. The secret of true charm. Girls should be taught that the true charm of womanliness is not alone in beauty of form or feature, nor in the possession of accomplishments, but in a meek and quiet spirit, in patience, generosity, kindness, and a willingness to do and suffer for others. They should be taught to work, to study, to some purpose, to live for some object, to trust in God and fear Him and respect their parents. Then as they advance in years, they will grow more pure-minded, self-reliant, and beloved. It will be impossible to degrade such a woman. She will escape the temptations and trials that have been the ruin of so many. Seeds of vanity. In many families, the seeds of vanity and selfishness are sown in the hearts of the children almost during babyhood. Their cunning little sayings and doings are commented upon and praised in their presence and repeated with exaggerations to others. The little ones take note of this and swell with self-importance. They presume to interrupt conversations and become forward and impudent. Flattery and indulgence foster their vanity and willfulness until the youngest, not infrequently, rules the whole family, father and mother included. The disposition formed by this sort of training cannot be laid aside as the child matures to riper judgment. It grows with his growth, and what might have appeared cunning in the baby becomes contemptible and wicked in the man or woman. They seek to rule over their associates, and if they refuse to yield to their wishes, they consider themselves grieved and insulted.